Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's me again, Chelsea, and today I'm here with another video, but today we are looking at the tag that I got tagged in many moons ago by the lovely Lisa, which is if you could only have 10. I'm not sure if that's the whole name. I don't really know who created this tag, but I will go back to Lisa's video, and if I find out who the original creator is, it'll all be down in the description box and I'll have Lisa's video tagged as well. But I just thought this would be a really fun video to include in VEDA2, because why not? So I've done no prep for this, literally no prep. We're just gonna see how this ends up. I don't really know how this is gonna turn out. I think it's gonna be a little bit chaotic, but we're going on that. Also, I want to set some boundaries, right? Because otherwise I'm gonna end up with like so many issues. So these, if I could only keep 10, are books that I have read. It doesn't include any books I want to read, because I don't know if it's a favourite yet, obviously. And I think some of them might have to be pretend, quite possibly, because I don't know if I've got all of them to hand. This might not be true. I might be able to find them all to hand, but yeah. So I'm gonna set myself a 2-minute timer. I'm not putting it on the screen. I will just end this. I might even speed it up. Who knows? But I'm gonna set a 2-minute timer on my phone. I'm not fancy. I'm not gonna put it on the screen, like I said. But we're gonna do a 2-minute timer. That's the fun noise that'll show that it's ended. 10 books. Ready? Steady. Let's focus first. Go. Oh god, okay. I'm stressed. Okay, halfway. Oh god, I don't think I'm gonna make this. Time. Okay. So, in the purpose of honesty, I've got 8 books here. I'm too short. And I think my heart's proper going. I think it's because... Oh no, I've got 9. I've got 9 because I can't get to one of them because it's down there, and I'm gonna include a photo. So I'm 1 short. 1 short. And oh no, do you know what? I'm 1 short, but I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm going to include a book that I have read this year, but I do not own. Well, I do own it. I own the audiobook of it. I don't own the physical book of it, but I'm going to include that in this list. So there you go, I have the 10. Woo! And it took me... I'm glad I set the timer, otherwise that would have taken me way too long. I'm going to speed up all that footage beforehand, quite possibly, or cut it, depending on how it looks. But you'll know, you'll see it. Okay, so let's go through then. Let's do the 2 that I can't actually get to, or have physically right now. So book number 1 is The Devil in the Dark Water. It's here. This is a 5-star read for me. It is a thriller, mystery, historical book. It is actually pretty good. Funnily enough, I gave it 5 stars. And thinking now about books that I've given 5 stars, one of them that I should have put on this list, I haven't put on this list, but we're moving on. This is not set in stone. I do not have to have just 10 books. Carrying on. So I gave this 5 stars because I did not see the ending coming, and with a good thriller, bearing in mind I don't read thrillers, I'm not a thrillery person, and I don't really know what drew me in. It could have literally been the sprayed edges, but you know, that is what it is. So yeah, that's possibly what pulled me in. but it's really good. I really enjoyed it and I had a good time reading it. So there is book number 1. Book number 2 is this one, which is Voice of War by Zach Argyle, which I have spoken about before in my mid-year book freakout tag. If you haven't seen that, I'll link that up here for you. Make sure you check it out. Went up last month. I adored this book. So this book follows our main character Chris. Well, it kind of follows a few different paths, but it starts off on our main character Chris, who is a soldier, and him and his wife are thread weavers, and in this world thread weaving is either blue or green, as in you can have blue eyes and you can thread weave with like air, or you can have green eyes and you thread weave with earth. And if you have brown eyes, you're achromatic, which means essentially you're normal. I would be an achromat. Actually no, I've got green eyes, so I would work with earth, which would be fantastic. But you take your child, and they've got a newborn baby, you take your child to a priest and they perform a ritual, and that's when the kids open their eyes for the first time and they see if they're a thread weaver or an achromat. And if they're an achromat, then they get blinded and taken in by the church, which is a little bit weird. But this whole series, so I've read the first 2 books now and I'm so excited for the 3rd book. This series is fantastic. The magic system in it is actually baffling. It's so well thought out. I don't think there's any plot holes. I could be wrong. Other people might find them plot holes, but I haven't, and I loved it. I thought it was so good. The just different ideas of being able to thread weave and like being able to see threads when you obviously let this into your body, and you can see threads that you can manipulate is so cool. And the story that goes along with it is fantastic. The character development, the relationships, everything. 5 stars. Absolutely love this book. So obviously I had to include it in this list, and that is the one that I own on audio but I don't own physically. So if you haven't read that, you should probably check it out because it's so good. And Zach Argyle is such a nice person, and he is a self-published author. What more do you need? 3rd book is this one, The Kingdom of Liars by Nick Martell. So I believe I gave this 4 stars. I'm going to try and remember how much I rated these because I don't think I'll remember all of them. But this book I've chosen because it surprised me. So our main character in this is so annoying throughout the whole book, and in the final 100 pages of this book someone actually turns around to him and goes, "Can you get a grip? You're so bloody annoying, just pull yourself together." And then he becomes such a better person and he grows, but at the same time he has to be annoying to make the ending worth it, if that makes sense. Like, you kind of have to not root for him and want to bash his head against a wall to actually completely understand the 180 that he does and everything else that comes in the final lot of chapters. I have got the sequel of this on my shelves and I just have not picked it up. I'm pretty sure the 3rd book is out soon as well, and I need to get that. I'm just a little bit annoyed because this one is so little and the other paperback is like this much taller, and it's just not going to match. And I feel like the 3rd book is going to match the bigger one than this, but we'll see how it goes. But book number 3 that I've chosen. Book number 4 is Raybearer by Jordan Ifweko. I loved this book, and then I tried to read the sequel audibly and it just was not happening. I think this is definitely a series that I just need to go back, read this and carry straight on with the 2nd book, because otherwise I'm just not going to enjoy it. And that's sad because I really loved this, but there's so many little things in the 1st book that I appear to have forgotten since I started the 2nd one, that I have to go back and reread this one. I like to think that most of the time my memory is great and I can remember most things that are important in a series, but when that audiobook started I was like, who is that and why is that happening and who and what? So I obviously need to go back and reread the 1st one, which is completely fine. I will do that at my own pace, but I do love these ombre editions, even if the box was a bit rubbish for this. But looking forward to going back and actually revisiting this world. I think I recommended this book in like Eric's video last year just because I loved it, and I want to feel that way about the sequel, so I need to give it every chance I can. Then we have a book that I believe started the title of the vlog of my new favourite sci-fi ever, and that is Project Hail Mary, obviously, by Andy Weir. I was very kindly sent this by Kate, actually, thank you so much, Kate. But I listened to it audibly, and I love this book. I absolutely love this book. It is so good. It's funny, it's heart-wrenching, it's sarcastic. Again, there's no romance, which I love, but it's about our main character whose name escapes me, so I need to check. Ryland. So our main character is called Ryland Grace, and he wakes up on a spaceship with no memory of who he is or where he is or why he's there, and throughout the book you see his memories come back, so he flashed between past and present, and that's really cool. So he goes on, he remembers, one of the first things he remembers is that he's a scientist, so he starts doing what he would normally do and like exploring, and the description of the spaceship is actually incredible. Like, you feel like you're there. All of this whole book is just so well written. The dialogue between him and another character is fantastic. All of the flashbacks add context exactly where you need it, so there are always places within the book that make you, like when he wakes up and you go, why are you there, how have you ended up there? That doesn't really get answered until the very last part. However, throughout the book I felt like the going backwards, the flashbacks, that's the word I was looking for, are so well placed that you're not left asking questions for too long. I raced through this. This was so good. I recommend this to anyone. This is definitely a fantastic sci-fi and probably one of my favourite sci-fis ever, really, which is a lot to say, but it is true. I had to include at least one YA, and I've chosen A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This book is so good. I really enjoyed this, so I would keep this purely for the fact that the rest of the series is great as well. But this is such a good starting point. So Pip comes across so many twists and turns, and I think this really proves how good Holly Jackson is as a writer, because my goodness, so good. Really enjoyed it. If you haven't read this, our main character is called Pip, and she's doing an EPQ, which is like a something that you do to get into college, I think, or university here in the UK, and it's an extended project qualification. I think that's what it's called. And she decides to do it on the murder of Addie Bell, who is a young girl who got murdered like a year or so before, and Pip doesn't believe that the person who got accused of the murder is the one who actually did it, so she delves in and obviously solves it, but does it in such a fantastic way. Like, it's just not one of those books where you're like, that was really easy, that was really quick. Well, I don't feel like it was. Maybe other people do, and people who actually read thrillers for like enjoyment feel that way, but for me, I don't really read thrillers. I've already said that. So I think this is such a good one, and I do actually really want to reread this series. Maybe next year though. Leave it a year, because I finished this series either late last year or earlier this year, and I'm not too sure when, but I loved this. So good, really enjoyed it, and yeah, definitely needs a reread. Now we're going back to self-pub authors, and first up is Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill, who I scream about a lot. I haven't actually screamed about him for a little while. That might be because I still haven't read the second book in this series, which is my fault. And once we get over that hurdle, the hurdle being me, not the book, once we get over that hurdle and we complete the book, then we will be back to our regular screaming time. But this is the first book in his series, his first actual book, not novella. There is a novella, which I would recommend reading beforehand and then going into this, but it's up for debate what the order is. So I love this. And Kalen, our main character, you just kind of want to squish him a little bit. He is very adorable. I gave this book like 5 stars when I read it. It was so good. So good. So obviously I'd have to keep this book. And then the other self-pub book is obviously The Darkest Dusk by D.W. Ross, obviously. Not the first book, and that's not because it's bad. It's not. I still enjoyed it. But because I feel like we go on so much more of an adventure in the second book, and we meet so many more cool people in the second book, and do so many more cool things. So that is why I would keep the sequel. Okay, we're on to the final 2 books. So, book number 9 is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. I loved this book. Like, this was the first V. Schwab book I read, I think. It must have been. I own Darker Shade of Magic. You can see it up here, and Darker Shade of Magic is above it, I think. But I hadn't read that when I read this, and I have also read Gallant now, but this is hands down my favourite V.E. Schwab book that I have read so far, and I love it. And I think it's more because of that human element with the twist of something magical, rather than loads of fantasy, which is what a Dark Shade of Magic is. I don't know, but I really enjoyed this. I loved it. I have 2 copies of this book now. Not the most copies I own of one book, but this was definitely one of the first like double editions I've ever owned. And then the final book, book number 10, if I could only have 10 books, is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This is one of my favourite books from last year. I absolutely adored this book. I love the fantasy elements, the magical realism, everything. I need to reread this. I absolutely loved it, and it was one of the first special editions I actually ever bought, and this was because it was really hyped. And I think I got this and The Starless Sea off of eBay, like as a duo, for like 40 odd quid, and they were my first like proper special editions of very hyped books off of BookTube, and since then it's all kind of snowballed, but that's okay. I loved this book. I absolutely love this, and I am so glad that I'm part of like the little cult following that it kind of has. I have 2 editions of this book now. I have this edition and the special edition from Illumicrate. Love them both dearly. They are so good, and I love the story as well, obviously. So there you go. There are the 10 books that I would keep if I could only have 10. This is an interesting mix of books, to be fair, but this was actually really fun. I am glad that I did it in just over the timer. I'm glad I set a timer, and I had good fun doing it. I like doing these little challenges. I don't really know if anyone still does this challenge, but if you haven't done it and you want to do it, consider yourself tagged, I guess. Obviously I was tagged by Lisa, and it went around the community a little bit, so I am 2, 3, maybe 4 months late on this, but that's okay. I'm always late and chaotic, but that's just me. So there you go. That is everything for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a like. It really supports me and my channel. Leave me a comment down below of one book you would absolutely 100% hands down keep, because I am interested to know. And if you want to see more of me, see me do more challenges, all that fun stuff, and you want to keep up to date with this crazy month that I'm doing, please consider subscribing down below and ring that notification bell to get notified every single time I upload new videos. I'm uploading every day this month for VEDA2, so make sure you're back tomorrow for more videos and go back and watch what else has been made. I'll link the playlist up here. I've made a playlist of all the videos, so I'll link it up here for you. Make sure you check it out. And yeah, that's everything. So I hope you're having an amazing day, and I'll see you tomorrow for another video. I can't wait for you all to see my face and carry on with this bonkersness that I have decided to do. So I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.